All right, everybody, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. This is a very special episode and collaboration with Let's Grab Coffee featuring George Khalife and meets the Canvas series, hosted by yours truly, Raphael Wong. So to kick things off, George, why don't you share a little bit about yourself, your story? What is Let's Grab Coffee all about, and what are you working towards through this project?
Sure. Well, Raph, first of all, thank you for having me on Canvas Series. I know this has been a long time in the making. So look, everybody, very happy to do this. And look, I was a kid who grew up in Lebanon. I lived in the Middle East half my life. Ended up immigrating to Canada, came here, and I always grew up in a family of bankers and finance. Mm-hmm. So that's something I eventually pursued in university. But I always had that sales and marketing DNA, deep down, that immigrant DNA, that hustler, the scrapper. So on the side, what ended up happening was me starting a lot of these side hustles or side ventures, one of them being Let's Grab Coffee. So it's a podcast I created a little less than a year ago with the intention of interviewing successful people in different industries and really just doing this, man. Talking, sharing stories, experiences with the eventual goal of creating impact. Because for me, my end goal, my end objective is really legacy. And for my parents and for my family and friends back home, it's really financial freedom. And so everything I do now with my full-time being at the Toronto Stock Exchange and with my side hustles, it's always geared to that, and that's really my underlying purpose.
Awesome. So, when you talk about, today's episode is all about storytelling, right? And, when you and I first met up for coffee that one time, we were talking about, what our mission is, what we're trying to do, where we came from, and what our current project is. And it's very clear that through that entire story, the one common theme that kept coming up was storytelling and why we want to convey our thoughts and share other people's ideas through this medium, right? So, in your job in sales and Toronto Stock Exchange, with your show, with your projects and your ventures, as well as the community and networks that you're plugged into, why is storytelling important?
Yeah, no, definitely. I want to get your perspective on this too. I'll share a very quick story. A story to tell a story. But look, I think what's happening a lot now, especially with marketers, with companies, everybody's product pushing. You understand? Like everybody's pushing stats. They're trying to assume what the consumer wants, and they're not taking the time to really provide that value up front and to position their product or service in a way or in a story that's really sort of captivating. And so I found that because I work in sales, also working on my personal brand on LinkedIn and stuff, people resonate, people connect with people, right? They don't connect with a product or service. Why do you love Steve Jobs so much? You love the iPhone because when you hold it, you have that sense of innovation.
Right,
when you buy those MJ shoes, dude, I see people line up. I live near Dundas. I see people line up for literally 3 days just to buy the new Yeezys, and they cost like $700. There's a reason, because marketers, what they do is really sell you emotions. When you wear those shoes and you step on the court, who do you feel like? You feel invincible. You feel like you can jump from the free throw line and dunk that shot, right? So I think that's what's interesting about storytelling. And from my perspective, it's communicating value, but it's doing it in a way that people can connect with. And one quick thing I'll tell you, this is how I realized this, by the way, in a micro example. I was on LinkedIn and I wanted to share a post. It's more of a personal one. And a friend of mine were spending all day on a beach, okay, in a lake nearby Toronto. Obviously, long day in the sun, you're kind of drained. We ordered our Uber, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be such a long drive home, I kind of like dreaded it. I get in this Uber, and this is Persian guy. Okay, I'm like, all right, first of all, Persian, neighbors, we're brothers. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Connection.
What's up, my man? But we get in, and he's like, hey, man, you want to play Nintendo? You and your friend? I'm like, Nintendo? We're in a car right now, bro. How am I going to play Nintendo? And I look at the panel, and there's this huge screen with 2 consoles. So he hands us the consoles, and he's like, pick Mario or Street Fighter. I'm like, Mario or Street Fighter? I'm like, well, let's do Street Fighter, man. So we start playing. I get home. I didn't even want to leave the car. I'm like, I have one more mission here. Stay 5 more minutes. Anyways, when I ended up leaving, we tipped him. I gave him a badge and all the things you can do on Uber, because he exceeded the customer's value, right? He sort of challenged status quo, and he over-delivered on expectation. And I wrote that post on LinkedIn. It went viral, 200,000 views, because it was a personal story, but people can connect to it. So I guess that's my mindset to it, and I'll position it to you. Like, how did you end up seeing the value of storytelling, and how do you use it in everything you do?
Yeah, so for me, storytelling was something that was very anchored. When I started my career in consulting, right? I used to, when I first started off as an analyst, I would just give my manager or partner all the information, all the stats, and his first question, and I'll never forget this. His first question every single time is always, okay, Raf, so what's the story? Like, what is the story before all else? Like, why are we here? You know, why is this important? How is this relevant to the other person? So to your point, I think the ability to connect and demonstrate value that the other person can understand is so important, right? So very early on, start to understand, you know, what is storytelling, right? And I think, you know, growing up, I hated public speaking. I hated storytelling. I hated presentations. The idea of getting up and talking to people was the most uncomfortable feeling, and I didn't truly understand what the value of it. But I think, you know, as I, you know, progressed in my career, started using it more, I think storytelling really is a way to connect at the why level and, you know, really level set on that. Share, you know, about how you plan on approaching and talking ideas and, you know, plans and how you want to tackle something, and then talking about the end product, right? So I think, you know, Simon Sinek does a good job about talking why, how, and what, and that golden circle. And that's kind of how I think about stories, because, you know, growing up, I think we all connected the most and learned the most through stories, whether it's a book, you know, something like your parents read to you before you went to bed, bedtime stories, right? Yeah, exactly, right? TV shows, movies, everything. And I think there's always a lesson involved, and it's deeper in terms of understanding value and understanding what the person is trying to say, opposed to someone just, you know, spitting out facts at you, right? Like, no one, like, I don't imagine most people enjoyed you know, when someone just tells them facts and data information like university, but when someone can thread it together in a story that has, you know, like the struggle, the climax, has a good plot to it, it's interesting, it's, you know, relatable, I think that's when people truly understand it. And, you know, much like you through the Canvas series, it's about, you know, using storytelling as a vehicle to share ideas, to share how people are doing something, to create value, create impact, and storytelling was the vehicle I chose for that.
And can I just make one point here, because I think it's very important for people watching this. I think when people think about storytelling, like, there's different mediums to do it, right? These are all just social channels, man.
Yeah.
You know, whether you use Instagram Live, whether you use SoundCloud, whether YouTube, live stream, whatever the heck it is, there's different mediums and there's different frequencies. So you made the point that when you were younger, you weren't necessarily comfortable doing public speaking. But man, I can attest to the fact that you're very comfortable on camera, and that's not an easy thing to do. When this thing turns on, when these are live, these, you know, microphones, it gets very sort of nerve-wracking. You know, you can see it play and everything's live and you're on the go now. You know, there is no rehearsing. Like, this is it. This is it. It's go time. And so doing that, being comfortable, knowing what questions to ask, making sure it's flowing freely, that's also a skill too. And so what I think you did through Canvas is you were able to find your medium, and you were able to use that as leverage to create tangible, positive value for people who want to listen.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, you know, like, when you first started off doing your YouTube videos back in 2015, and it started off with just you talking, to which evolved into podcasts and like your show now, Let's Grab Coffee, as well as all the speaking engagements you do, you know, participating and hosting the LinkedIn events, so on and so forth. I'm curious, like in the very beginning, how did you get started? Like, what were some of the specific thoughts or decisions or actions that you took that, you know, led you to go, like, you know what, the way I'm going to first add value is through video, and then podcasting, and then live speaking. Like, how did it start, and how has it evolved since?
Look, I think deep down, I love putting myself in a very uncomfortable position. And everybody who maybe sees me speak or even sees this podcast will be like, wow, you know, this guy's so comfortable on camera or comfortable on stage and all that stuff. That wasn't always the case for me. You know, like, I always tell this story, and I've probably said it too many times, but in grade 5, I had a teacher. You know, I had recently immigrated to Canada, and I was actually in a French school before, so English was actually, back then, my third language. And, you know, I was just struggling with presenting. I actually had a very big stuttering problem. I was overweight, super insecure. You know, just I wasn't confident. And so I went in front of the class, and I was presenting this project. And I remember after I finished the project, the teacher comes to me and says, George, I don't think you're ever going to be a good communicator. You know, indirectly kind of hinting at me saying that. She's like, I just don't think business or communication is going to be your thing. You might excel in many other things, but this is not going to be your And when she said that, dude, it just sparked a fire. And ever since then, I've always, you know, it's kind of been a motivator, not to just prove her wrong, but to prove to myself that I can do it. And so whether it be the podcast, like, people don't get this, but I started the podcast out of thin air. You understand? Like, I didn't know how to do any of this. I still I know probably like 50% of it. I'm still learning the production and how to do all this micro stuff. when I created my blog, I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I Googled like how do you start a website using WordPress or Wix? And so everything I've done, man, it's not that I've been fully prepared or I waited for the perfect time. I just kind of started doing it. And so like the speaking engagements, I think it takes time. It's through experience. Sure, some personality traits help, like charisma and doing all this. But I think for me, I figured out how to be confident with what I'm good at. So I'm over-indexing on my strengths and I'm sort of undermining my weaknesses. And over time, if you look at podcast episode, bro, I was a wreck. You can tell with my voice, I was super nervous. I told you the story, I almost like died out. But, I think every time you get more comfortable, so with every speaking engagement, I figure out what things to get better at. And I always tell myself, it's kind of like when you're in the gym, when I'm about to deadlift like heavy weight, you can see in my face that I'm kind of like, this is nothing. And it's not that I don't think it's nothing, but when I do that, it sends a signal to my brain that you got this. So when I go to speak, you can tell I'm like really comfortable externally, but internally I also get nervous. I get the butterflies.
For sure.
But I'm telling myself, dude, you got this and let's do it. Let's have fun with it. So I don't know how you were able to sort of, deal with that. Maybe it took in a different position, but how did you go from being super nervous and knowing that, to now doing your own podcast and being comfortable in front of the camera? How do you deal with it as a more introverted person?
Yeah. So I would say, as a more introverted person, definitely had a lot of thinking involved in my head, right? And not to say I was, overthinking it, because my first episode, much like you, I turned on my laptop, I jumped on Skype with my friend Katie, I turned on QuickTime Player, and I fired away. Right? It was super simple.
Were you nervous?
Oh yeah, I was freaking out, absolutely. and even up until now, I'm pretty nervous right now. I'm not even gonna lie, right? And it's something that as an introvert, the idea of being in front of people, or I guess putting out my thoughts out there publicly is very challenging, right? And
what do you find challenging about it?
I think in terms of being able to into words that people can understand, right? Like I think a lot. I think
you overanalyze.
I wouldn't say I overanalyze like specific details and stuff per se, but I live I definitely have a narrative in my head. I think a lot in my head. I live a lot in my head per se, right? Like when I'm often at the end of the day I come home and I gotta take some time to think. So knowing that though, I've definitely used that as a strength. I had to play to the cards that you're dealt with, right? And it's kind of like every single night I think about, okay, what are some of the thoughts I had today? What are some of the key decisions? What are some of the actions? What are the things I'm grateful for? What are the things I'm excited about? Yeah. And just by documenting that every single day, and I've been doing that for a couple of years now, that's really formed the content that forms my narrative, my story, right? And it really started by just doing a dump of everything in my head out here onto the phone that I write these notes on, and then from there having all this content gives me a lot more confidence. I can move things around and really formulate what that point of view is, which allows me to better tell my story, right? Because doing it on the fly is a lot more challenging. Whereas knowing that I think about this every single day already and practice taking the thoughts in my head and putting it out into words, practicing that every single day has helped me, better tell stories.
That's kind of interesting. I'm just thinking about, because I think that's maybe the major difference. For me, I'm such a sort of improv kind of person. Even when I'm presenting, I have a general idea of what I'm supposed to say. Even when we're talking about how to set up this podcast, I learned a lot from your structure too. And I really admire the fact that you're super professional about it, and you go line it up, and we set up the questions beforehand. I love that type of trail, and I've always been the person that once you turn this on, let's do it.
Just go.
Let's go. And I think even as a younger kid, I mean, in high school I was part of a musical, Annie. Don't judge me on this, all right? I played Mr. Warbucks. It was once. I enjoyed it though. It was awesome, and always had that stand-up comedy kind of feel. Seriousness, but I always use kind of a little bit of a jokes in my presentation style. So just wanted to, that's kind of an interesting fact.
So out of curiosity then, say there's someone in front of us right now and they have an interesting idea, or they have a point of view they want to share, or some way that they want to create outcomes and impact for people. What would you recommend them to do to start telling a story around this? What are the specific steps that someone should think about, whether they are more extroverted or introverted? What is that process?
Okay, well, let's, because I think most of the audience is probably within our age category, right? So I'm 24, but I probably look like I'm 42. So look, if you're in that bucket, if you're a student, university, or in that younger bracket, I think this is going to be very, very important advice to you. And I only say this because I actually deal with it many times, especially when it comes to storytelling or putting yourself out there. Okay. The one thing I always hear, and I think it was in one of our questions, well, George, I'm only 20, right? George, I'm only 19 or 21. What do I have to say that people can derive value from? And I sit there, I'm like, that's hilarious, because you've lived 21 years, you've lived 20 years, and you have experiences right now, you have stories, you have ideas, and you've been through situations that only you have been through. Understand? Like, that's unique to your scenario. That's unique to your life. Depends on where you grew up, your situation and your socialization, the schools you went through, the experiences that you dealt with. All these things you can take, you can package, and then you can spit them out in a way that people can either, take motivation from, inspiration from, value. They can resonate. They can, you know what, Raf, man, you share that story, and I really connected with it because I went through something similar.
Yes.
Like, that's what you're doing. And this takes a lot of credit. I'm not saying it's easy. It's very difficult to do this, man. You're going to get hackled at some points. People might not understand what you're doing. But I think if you stay genuine, let me be micro. If you stay genuine, if you're passionate about the things you talk about, and especially when you're young, talking about an experience you've been through, people can't call bullshit on. Because it's not you learning from an article and then recycling that content out and then changing your headline on LinkedIn and calling yourself a blockchain guru. There's a difference, or you know what I mean, or like I'm a motivational leader now, and you're like 19. There's a difference. But if you're passionate, you're genuine, and you spit content that's true to you, and that you really know deep within your core, nobody can mess, and people are going to get value, and you're going to make impact. So execute.
I would, to build on top of that, definitely, if I were to break them into two categories or two sides of the equation, one is to be aware, self-aware about your own story, your own content, as well as what are other people thinking about?
Yeah.
Right. And when I first started the podcast, I did a feedback exercise with people in my circles, family, friends, colleagues, mentors, people I play sports with, people in the community, so on and so forth, and just really understanding, what are the things that you think about? What are the challenges you face? What are the interactions we have that you get the most value or energy or excitement about? And really identifying that need that people are wondering, what are other people doing to get started? That need was kind of like, okay, so now I have the need. And then I started asking myself, okay, so what do I enjoy having these conversations, to your point? What are you genuinely interested in doing? Right? So you have a need and you have something you enjoy, that's enough to get you started. Right? And then the second half of the equation is to just execute. Right? I think, for both you and I, we have a very similar story. Like, we just, fired up the laptop and started going, right? And like, you improve over time, and like I'm sure, much for yourself as well. Like not to say my first episodes, like my early episodes were bad. No, they were fantastic. I love them truly. But like, they improve over time. They evolve your point of view. Like, your questions are more focused. You're more clear and articulate, and more confident in general. And I think just that awareness and execution factor, you just got to build it up to a point, and then just go and start running at it, right?
So how, when you talk about self-awareness, which is very true, I mean, that's what I mean by being genuine and passionate and all that stuff. So having that level of EQ, how do you go about finding it within yourself? And obviously it's a work in progress, I get it, but how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, so I would say, this is where, being more introverted has definitely helped in my perspective, because as I mentioned before, I spend a lot of time, with myself, thinking a lot and whatnot, and like a lot of those times when I'm thinking to myself, if there's one thing I'm very comfortable with, is having the tough conversations with myself and really understanding, like, what is it, that thing that makes you uncomfortable, like, and it usually comes back to some form of insecurity that most people don't want to acknowledge. And I think in terms of a habit and routine, every single night I ask those questions I outlined earlier, right? Like, what am I grateful for? What are some of the big thoughts and decisions and actions that I took? What did I do today that I really didn't want to do? And I ask myself these questions every single night for years now, and I don't miss a single day, because it forces me to think about those things, and it puts it top of mind, right? So as I go through the day, when I catch myself making a big decision or taking action on something I really didn't want to do, I catch myself like going, oh right, yeah, like I just did that. I have something to write about tonight, and that builds up over time, and you really, I think self-awareness is it's a skill like anything else. It's like working out. Like you got to practice at it. You got to go at it every single day, right?
Yeah, and I love
about yourself.
Well, I feel like everybody's trying to find an answer, right? Everybody just wants it tomorrow. Like I'm gonna go to pick up a dumbbell and tomorrow I'm gonna look like Arnold. Everybody wants that answer, or that quick diet, or that Bernstein, or whatever that thing is. And I think you should enjoy the process. Like doing this, man, and learning from it. And you just talked about like looking back at episode 1 and it being the building blocks and giving you confidence. Like that's enjoyable because you can look back at one point after doing 100 episodes, be like, man, I stuck to this. I was consistent. I kept improving. And I overcame challenges, and I did this on the side, even though I had a full-time job, and it was hectic at times. This is why it's also important, not just to be self-aware, but do something that you're passionate about. This isn't fluffy. I'm not trying to act like Tony Robbins, but the reason why that's important is because when you face a roadblock or a challenge, you're still doing this on it. Man, it's 3:30 p.m. on a Saturday. And this is like, I'm telling you, for people who are not in Canada, this is the first day that it was sunny.
Yeah.
With no snow. Do you understand? Everybody's throwing frisbees outside and stuff, and we're doing a podcast. Why? Because we love it. You can't fake this. This isn't bullshit. Like, you're doing this because you love it. I'm here because I love doing this too. You understand? And if you do, and if you keep doing things like this, I think you're going to be successful in anything you want to pursue.
Absolutely. So you touched on the point earlier about, really enjoying the process. And I want to, loop back in a point we talked earlier about, doubt and fear, right? And I think, for a lot of people, the reason why they don't enjoy public speaking, and myself included, is because of fear, right? It's scary to do presentations, public speaking, sharing content, creating content online. So, what does fear mean to you? I know you've had a very interesting acronym you've used in the past videos, and how do you tackle that fear when you first got started? Like, how did you push yourself to launch that first video in 2015 in the winter, and how did you overcome some of that fear?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think people need to understand the difference between fear and danger, right? So fear is false expectation appearing real. That's the acronym, okay? I know it sounds like, so let me break it down for you in a cool story, okay? And by the way, when we talk about fear, the reason why people have this fear is because everybody feels it when undergoing a certain level of change. Okay? As an example, think of a time when you did something different for once. You asked a girl out on a date and you were kind of nervous. That's a change. You went from high school to university. It's a change. You moved out of your parents' house and now you're on your own and you're working for the first time and you're paying your own bills. It's a change. In every single instance, you feel fear. Right? Or if you want to create a podcast, or you step on stage, right? Nothing negative has happened yet, but it's only built up in your mind, right? Because you're playing negative consequence of things that might occur if things don't go well. And so you're scared. You're scared of what people might think, what people might say. You're scared of if someone ridicules you and all that stuff. So one of the interesting stories I went through is I was in Dubai, okay, and I love scuba diving. But this one time I told my dad I wanted to go, and he's like, dude, why don't you do something different? He's like, why don't you go skydiving? And this is my dad telling me, right? Like a Lebanese dad, man. So I didn't expect this, but he's like, screw it. Just jump, throw your body tomorrow outside of a plane. I'm like, all right, let's do it. I book, and by the way, I went by myself. This was impulsive. I literally booked it for the next day. The night of, I had my cousin's, pretty much wedding, so it was not the perfect timing. Anyways, I go to Skydive Dubai, which is a very kind of famous place. A lot of celebrities go there. Will Smith recently went. So you go, you sign this waiver. Dude, the pages are it's 30 pages of just disclaimers and all. I didn't look at anything. I'm just flip to the back. I'm like, sign it, take it, let's go. And I'm trying to keep myself pumped up. My sister's with me. I don't want to look weird, I'm really nervous. They strap you up and you're ready to go. And I'll show you the different stages of change. So the person who's strapped to me is this lady who's 5'4". I'm almost 6, right? I'm 5'11", 210 pound Lebanese dude, so she straps onto me. And when I stand up, you have to understand, I kind of almost pull her up, and I'm like, I don't know if this is safe, man. How am I gonna jump out of a plane? I need Dwayne Johnson or something. I need to feel safe up in here, man, Anyways, we start heading to the plane. It's a small plane. There's no door. Okay, it's an open door. You walk into the plane. Here's my advice to everybody listening if you want to go skydiving. Do not be the last person on the plane because you'll be the first person out. It's the stupidest mistake I did. And I get it and I'm like, oh man, it's going to be so easy. I'll be the last one out. They're going to be like, you good? You can't hear. You good? You're gonna be the first one to jump. I'm like, what was that? What? No, hey, come on, just let other people want to go first. Let's be nice here. So, anyways, then there's like this light, right? Red, green, yellow, and when she taps me on the chest, she's like, start walking to the ledge. I'm like, we're gonna do it? She's like, start walking to the ledge, George. So you start walking to the ledge, and you're holding this thing, man, and it's all on YouTube if you want to see this video. And she kind of like rocks you 3 times, okay? Now she's rocking you, and you're looking down, man. You're 15,000 feet in the air on a moving plane. You understand? Like, so we're moving, and she's like, look up so that you don't get dizzy. So I look up, and we just make the jump. Now, through the whole stages, when I got to Skydive Dubai, I was literally about to shit myself. You have to understand, like, I was so scared. You know, big dude, inside I was literally about to die. When I get on the plane, this is like the excitement. Now you're excited, right? You don't know what to expect, you're nervous, but it's so much emotion, you don't even know what to make of it. Then, I really felt fear. Like when I walked to the edge, this is like reality hits in, like slaps you in the face. You're like, oh my God, like I'm actually here, this is actually happening. When you jump, it's like an overwhelming feeling. Like, wow, like I'm doing this, you know? When she pulls the parachute, then you enjoy it, right? You take it all in. You look at the view, everything's cool. You feel like it's an insane amount of confidence. When you land, dude, it was the most exhilarating feeling I've ever had in my entire life. I breathed oxygen like I never breathed it before. And you come out of there like, I don't know what else I can do now. You know, I just jumped out of a plane. And so in anything you do, any change that you have to go through, you're going to feel those different stages.
I love that, and yeah, like I've gone skydiving before too, and I totally get that entire journey, right? So, and like a very clear distinction that you made that I want to highlight, and I really want to emphasize on is that there's a difference between fear and danger, right? Yeah. So, I became obsessed with how the brain works and neuroscience and what is fear, right? And that long story short, it's rooted in this part of your brain called the amygdala, and it's part of like a center of your brain that helps you kind of get into fight or flight mode, right? And then like you start releasing like adrenaline and dopamine, that feel good. That's why you feel that rush when you're about to jump out of the plane, right? Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is that was very core to our existence and survival as a species because it kept us alive. Fear kept us alive, right? Because of animals and like other kinds of threats, right? And to your point now, when you're walking on stage, it's really important to differentiate. Like, is this actually dangerous? Is this like, are you walking down a dark alley and like your senses are telling you that this is a bad idea? That's danger. And then there's fear, like fear. Like, what are people going to think? What are they going to judge? But, something I constantly remind myself is when I start feeling that sense of fear, it really is this something that's actually going to kill me or hurt me? Like, is this actually real danger?
What's the worst case?
Yeah, what's the worst case, right? And, I think as part of humans, as the part of our evolution, when you got, kicked out of your tribe or your group and you got banished on your own, your chances of, survival, drops to like basically nothing. Like you're on your own out there in the world, you're gonna die probably, right? So that's why I think, like we, and as well, like humans are social animals, like we need to belong, that feeling of belonging. And when that's at risk, right? So when we put ourselves out there and there's the risk of someone, judging us and kicking us out, so to speak, we get afraid of that. And I think to your point, it's just really acknowledging and understanding that is this really that bad?
And I love the fact that you bring psych. I want to ask you a question. So I think for someone watching this, much like myself, even when fear sometimes kicks in, and by the way, when I say this, like by no means have I always overcame fear in a sort of courageous way. Like I've had instances where I've been like really shut down and challenged, and I let it get to me. So if someone's watching this and they've been through that instance, what would you tell them? Like if they actually face fear, they let it get to them, they got in a little bit of a slump, now they're trying to get back to it. It's sometimes difficult. Mm-hmm. So have you sort of felt it? If so,
every day.
How do you deal with
every
it?
Day. Every day. I would say, honestly, most days. And if anything, I think it's still there every single day. It's just how I deal with it. It's been a little better now.
So what do you do?
So again, I think for me personally, as someone more introverted, every night it comes back to that routine. It comes back to that last 15, 20 minutes before I go to sleep, just asking myself and thinking through these questions. And don't get me wrong, it's like the fear is very much there. Right, like right now, you know what I mean? Like the fear doesn't necessarily go away, and I think it was Seth Godin who said in in one of his shows, like, you know, like, this is biological, it's never gonna go away. I think it's about just learning how to dance with it, learning how to embrace it, right? And like, it's gonna suck, and you're gonna feel like shit, you know, and like, it's scary, and like, you're nervous, and like, you're shaking, and blah blah blah, and like, I think that's part of it. But at the same time, like, at least for me, it comes back to that question, like, how bad is it really, right? And then some little hacks that I've kind of really designed into my day-to-day, you know, when people send me messages, you know, whether through DMs or text messages or email or whatever, and they tell me how the things I've done has added value for them, has taught them something, has sparked an interest for them to start, you know, Googling and learning something. Those, you know, thank yous and acknowledgements, I keep on my phone. I have like a full, like an album, and I have the screenshots. And whenever I'm really feeling that kind of, that low point, that fear, and I'm scared, I remind myself, like, okay, like, yeah, there's the fear of people might judge me and whatnot, but there are people who really benefit from it, right? And then, you know, tying those little pieces of evidence with that question, what is the worst thing that can happen, coupled by all the good things that has come from it, that's how I face fear every single day. Like I do that little checkpoint every single day, and the two together, it helps me get through it.
I love that, man. It's like I think what Gary Vee says, it's like 1/0. You know, if one person, you know, got impacted or received any value or some positive change through what you're doing, I think that has a lot of value. And we talk about like the worst case scenario. Dude, the worst case scenario is everybody has pretty much on average 28,000 days on this earth. That is the worst case scenario. We're all gonna die. You're gonna die, I'm gonna die, you're gonna die, everybody watching this, you're gonna die too. You gotta embrace it. Like, and if you don't do it now, when are you gonna do it? If not you, who? You understand? So like, at one point in time, the biggest fear for me, to be very frank with you, is being 80 years old, you know, on a couch, looking back at my life and saying, bro, you're 24. And you had every capability. You were able to walk. You had your full health. You were in good shape. You were in a good mental state.
You have all of this.
You had your network. You lived in downtown Toronto. Like, that's the 1%, man. And you didn't do it because you were scared of what people might think. Are you crazy? You know. And so I almost give myself like a mental slap. I'm like, George. Every time I feel this way, I'm like, just stop. You know what I mean? Stop. This is what you want to do, isn't it? Nobody's putting a gun to your head saying you got to do it. So if it is, go out, head up, chin up, you know, and face it. Face it like a man. Like, go do it. Embrace it. But have control over it. And don't let what other people might think or what's it define you, because 99% of it doesn't matter. I care about certain people in my life, like my family, close friends. That's it. And I listen constructively to their advice, because I know they have my best interest. Everybody else, if it's super negative and it's not out of context, I don't care. One last thing I'll leave you on this topic. I'll leave you with is, when someone, like, if I don't know you, Raf, right, and I come in, I'm like, oh, Raf, you have a podcast? You know, that's so cool, dude. What do you do that on Saturdays? You know, like this kind of mentality that people will try to put you down in. And I'm like, but who cares? Because that person telling you this, they don't know me. They don't know you. They don't know the full Raf. You understand? Like, I haven't been there with you for the 20 plus years. I don't know you from A to Z. You caught a glimpse of what I'm doing. So if you caught a glimpse, like if you watch this right now and you watch 1 minute of this whole video, you might think Raf and I are douchebags. Right? Who knows? Like, you might have all these different, I hope not, but you have all these, like, these misconceptions of who we are, because you didn't take the chance and the time to watch the full segment. And so when I get this feedback, I kind of do it humorously, and I'm like, well, honestly, I really appreciate the advice, man. I love that. You know, I'll definitely take it into consideration. Can I just ask, like, please just watch this for the whole full hour, and then come back to me. Let's have a mature discussion about what you think that I did wrong. You know, and so if you put yourself always up top and you leave your ego on the side, I think people eventually will respect it. If they don't, many dogs are going to bark on the street. You can't stop for everyone.
And that's brilliant, right? I think you know, I'm acknowledging that and having that conversation, as well as that understanding in your head, and like, I would say to even build on top of that, you know, when that happens to me, which has happened many times already, I'm sure for you as well, I flip back the question, right? So, you know, I understand that, one, you know, this content's not for everybody, and, you know, after, say they listen to the whole episode and still not for them, like, that's okay, right? It's not meant to be for everybody. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think, you know, I try to flip back the question and ask them, okay, how could I make this relevant for you? How can I make this valuable for you? And once I switch the the switch, so to speak, and make it about them again. They go from offense about, oh, like it's not that good, blah blah blah, this is silly, this is a joke, to suddenly, oh, like this person's asking me, what do I care about? What do I want to learn? And then suddenly they start talking, and that relatability, that ability to connect and empathize, putting it back on people actually sparks a very interesting conversation. I think I've had a lot of interesting encounters where it began like that, and over the evolution of that discussion, it quickly turned into like a future collaboration, or let's meet up for more drinks and talk about some more, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's about being, to your point, leaving the ego on the side and really making it about them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can you add value back to them? And I think that's the beautiful thing about storytelling, right?
Yeah.
It's that everyone's got a story. You just gotta tap into it and get them to start sharing their story,
Mm-hmm.
and then finding ways to improve it and adding value to that. So speaking of story as well, like you mentioned earlier that I think both of us, we acknowledge that our content is not for everybody.
Yeah.
So for someone starting out right now, right? So up until now, they know the value of storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
right? We've covered that already. We've had a lot of conversations about getting over that fear, which is typically the number one thing that impedes people from telling their story. The next thing, okay, so what am I going to talk about, and who is it for? How did you identify your audience and figure out the people that what you're trying to tell is for, and what is that message? Like, how do you come up with that?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, and for me, I think I never really overanalyzed what my audience is going to be and what age group and how I'm going to target. As it relates to my podcast, in fact, but when I started doing it, I kind of wanted to do it for everybody who can take real value from what I'm saying, and at least if they just give it a listen, if they're a little bit open-minded, they'll know that I have a good intention, and at least if you know me personally, you'll know where my position comes from, and you'll derive some inspiration. And I also want it to be an idea that people can look at. Like, I also immigrated from Lebanon, right? I grew up in Saudi and I lived in Bahrain, and if this person can come, who used to be overweight, who used to be insecure, who wasn't at the top of the class and all that stuff, the whole message, right? But if this person can stand for something and can do something and can make whatever they envision become a reality, why can't I do it? So that's really my only premise. I just want it to be an idea for people in my community who follow me on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, LinkedIn, to say, look, at the end of the day, if George can do it, I can do it too. Why can't I start my blog? Why can't I start my podcast or whatever? In terms of specific audience, on the other end of it, I have a lot of friends. I have a good friend who's a YouTuber, and she does things about makeup and nail polish and lifestyle and stuff, more geared towards women, obviously, and it's a lifestyle brand and stuff, but she has I think 500,000 subscribers or something. She's done really well, and she's figured out that that's her audience, and the reason is because she's actually passionate talking about this stuff. You're passionate about psychology. I like talking about people's stories, what they've learned, their life lessons, self-development, business, entrepreneurship. That's my field. I just love talking about it. You understand? So I took that and I created a platform for other people to get value from and to learn from it. So I think it's very simple. Talk about what you love, do the things you're passionate about, share your message, try to be open in the frequency that you're comfortable with. So if Gary Vee puts out 700 tweets and Instagrams in one day, and I admire Gary, obviously, but that doesn't mean it's right for everybody. And he also says that. So find your frequency, find your channels, and find the mediums that work best for you.
Out of curiosity, the content that you consume, the podcasts, the videos, the books, the blog articles, the ones that you consume, so like Gary, how much of what you do is replicated or similar to the stuff that you yourself consume?
So I do consume a lot of content, and I think I try not to emulate. I try to keep it original to myself. Right. Just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for me. And the last thing I want, man, is to be fake. I don't want to bullshit. This is the way I've been doing it. And if you look at all my channels, if you look at all my episodes, I've tried to be consistent. Obviously trying to improve, but my tonality, my questions, my demeanor, my energy level has always been, and I try to be consistent. And so I can consume from Gary, I can consume from Tim Ferriss, from Jordan Peterson, from different types of people and different avenues. And I love consuming content because here's the thing. When you're telling stories, you refer to Simon Sinek and Seth Godin, reading books, listening to podcasts, filling your mind with good creative content, what that enables you to do when you talk to people, when you do interviews, when you do speeches and all that stuff, it allows you to connect dots. And so what's very important in storytelling is making sure that your points connect and that your story flows well in a way that people can understand it. But you can only do that if your brain has a repository of good content that it can pull from, whether it's from your experiences or things that you've digested, and massaging it in a way that's valuable for people absorbing it.
Yes, I love it, and I absolutely do agree. I think it's it's a work in progress of taking the things that you consume and you think about and you learn about, and then picking out the pieces that you like and don't like and whatnot, and then creating your own style, your own way of a delivery, your own kind of content theory or thesis, so to speak.
And for you, what's the best way to absorb content? Is it through other podcasts, books?
Yeah, both. Just every day on my way to work, I try to read some articles on my phone. I listen to podcasts.
Nice.
I try to read every night. I consume a lot of content, and to your point, there's definitely traits and practices that other thought leaders do that I try to learn from and adapt. But I think what's more important is adapting it in a manner that works for you. It's going to be contextual, right? And that's why I think at the very beginning of this conversation, when people just spit facts, if you do these 5 things, you're gonna get X. I don't see that as an effective way of doing it versus telling a story, because then people can relate and cherry pick the things from that story, and then they adapt it back into their own narrative.
Very true.
Right? Versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rules of whatever business or life. It's
not linear. Man.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone's different. And I think making it contextual is the most important part that most people forget. And context is real. A very effective way of making things relatable and contextual is through stories, because everyone shares very similar stories. It might be different in the location and place and time and whatever, but the underlying message is always the same. There's a struggle, there's a plot, there's a climax, there's a a lesson learned or a good ending. I don't care what it is, right?
People can relate to it, and that's what's funny, man. About we're talking about stories, but I don't know if you guys have read The Alchemist or
I love that story.
Love The Alchemist, love The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. These books. What's interesting, when I was reading The Alchemist, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but when you're reading it, I almost every couple pages I would read and I would take a deep breath, I would be I take it in, I kind of close it for a second, I just think. And Paulo Coelho actually talks about this one of his interviews, because The Alchemist from the external perspective, it seems like the book is trying to give you an answer, right, through the person's journey, right, the shepherd, and there's a lot of religious context to it too, but in that journey, Paulo Coelho's intention is not to give you a one-form answer, here's what you have to do, or here's the rules to life. He's giving you a trail that this person embarks on in life, which many of us go through as well. And as he's going through these different points of situations or experiences, what you're actually doing is you're living through this person's lens, this character, the main character. And you're trying to attribute what has happened to you or your ideology into that character. And so as every chapter progresses, you're thinking to yourself, how would I navigate, or how would I deal with this, or how do I feel about this question?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And how is it, relevant in your life, right? I don't have, sheep to sell, and I don't have a mountain to climb for my, personal legend. But if you think about it, what is the underlying lesson it's trying to teach? It's about finding your personal legend, which is your thing, whatever that is. Okay, it's a pursuit, it's a progress, something you work towards. And I think one of the favorite lines from that book is something along the lines of the thought of the fear of failure is worse than the failure itself, or something like that. And again, he told that in the context of the story, but extracting that lesson, applying it into business and work and projects and podcasts, whatever it is, you can learn those things. And I think that is the power of storytelling at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's like that other quick story he mentioned when he encounters this really wealthy person, right? And he enters his mansion or castle, whatever it is, and the guy's like, "Look, I want you to try something. I'm going to give you a small teaspoon, and I'm going to put oil in it. What I want you to do, because obviously you see this huge castle of mine, it has statues and flowers and beautiful ornaments. I want you to go around, like do a circle, browse the castle, and have this teaspoon in your hand. And all I want you to do is, by the time you come back, I need the oil to be still in the spoon. It needs to be full. He's like, yeah, I got this. Don't worry about it, man. Puts it. Now, as he's going, as naturally all of us would, he's trying to he's getting distracted. He looks at, the statues and the vases and all that stuff. And he doesn't realize, but he comes back and all the oil's gone. Right? And he's like, all right, let's try this one more time. He puts the oil in. He does the same sort of route. This time, he doesn't look at anything. And he's just so focused on the oil. He's like holding it and making sure nothing spills. He comes back. He's like, so what you learn from this? I'm not really sure. I don't really know what the point of this was. He's like, the point of this was when you're living through life and when you're going through this journey, make sure that the oil is almost like your character. It's your building blocks. It's your foundation. Never let go of that. But also don't forget to branch out and enjoy the beauty of life.
Look up. Right, like literally to look
beautiful
up, right?
Story, man. And it's so creative. Like these stories are what you can never forget. Like that's I love remembering these types of stories because they can be used in any context.
Exactly. So why don't we jump into the rapid fire questions? So let's ask a bunch of pointed questions and let's see where it goes.
Cool. So just quickly for your context, what we're gonna do. So Raf and I kind of talked about this and he's a little more introverted, I'm a little more extroverted, and we have different perspectives, and this is why it's kind of cool for you today. So we're going to do something where we're going to ask these rapid questions, and just to give you the perspective of how we might differ in our answers. So, you want to kick it off? How about you?
Yeah, so what do you do right before a networking event?
I wear a nice suit, and I just go in there with a nice smile and with the objective of meeting a lot of people. How about yourself?
I walk in with some sort of goal in mind per se. I want to find someone to that knows about X, and it's not so much about meeting the goal. I think as an extrovert, as an introvert, it pushes me to go and talk to people and really dig in and have conversations. I think that's more about the intent of it than actually ticking the box, so to speak.
Would you rather speak on stage or talk to someone one-on-one?
I talk to someone one-on-one.
Stage, man.
Yeah, the stage.
That keynote gets me all the time. But, yeah.
How do you feel after a presentation?
Amazing. Just like that. It's probably I feel most alive when I finish either a talk or a podcast. Like, that's when I feel that energy.
Interesting. I feel exhausted.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
This is what I'm talking about, man.
Exhausted.
See the difference? This is true. Okay. That's great.
What is your favorite story growing up?
Favorite story? Oh, man. Okay, so I love the one very quickly. It's the person who wanted to change the world. So he starts from a macro perspective. I want to change the world. Very passionate, ambitious young person. Figures out he can't. Starts dialing down. Goes to country. Goes to nation. Goes to town. Tries to change his family. Figures out he can't do it. 80 years old, looks back. He's like, if only I changed myself, I would have impacted my family. They would have impacted the town to the nation to country world.
Interesting.
How about yourself?
To be honest with you, I was going to say The Alchemist before you even brought it up. That was on top of my head.
It's all good, man.
And just the idea of pursuing something, and it's not even about getting to it per se. It's just about everything that happens along the way. I think is such a worthwhile story, and which is why I think both of us do this podcast, because I think everyone's got such an interesting story about how they're going about doing it.
Yeah, man. So I got a question for you too. Favorite Netflix show? Let's do it.
Ooh, favorite one top of my head. Is Billions on Netflix still? I think it was in the US, but
sure.
Yeah, Billions is one of my favorite shows
right now. It's good.
Highly recommend.
Really?
Recommend, especially you're a finance guy.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, what about you?
This is the issue with Netflix, man. There's just too many. I'm kind of finishing up Vikings now. Narcos. There's what's the other one? Mindhunter. Beautiful show. If you like psychology, bro.
Yeah.
Mindhunter. I'm telling you.
Interesting.
Great show. Yeah.
Who is your favorite thought leader and why?
Favorite thought? I think Tony Robbins really impacted me, man. I remember I read Unlimited Power. My best friend Tony recommended the book. He's been just an amazing person in my life, and he's always been there for the tipping points. He recommended. We actually bought it together. I bought Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within, and after reading that book, my entire life changed. Not in a obviously there's a lot in there, but just the mindset. It really sparked fire. Yeah. How about yourself?
I would say Tom Bilyeu. he does impact theory, and just his approach to just the preparation, the research, and everything he does, and how he ties, how he backs up personal development with science, psychology, and that's definitely something that I've, found that I, resonate with as well, right? At the end of the day, this is all really under that, personal and professional development umbrella, but how do I do it? Through business and entrepreneurship as a vehicle, through science and, a psychology as another vehicle, right?
And he started Quest Bar, or Quest Nutrition, for those who don't know, and also the podcast, which is really, really big on YouTube.
Yeah.
Interesting. So for you, like, so if you're in a crowd, like say you walk into an event and you see like a crowd, do you go to the corner or the center?
I go on the outsides. I found like, one or two people, or like a small group, and I kind of find my way in there and have a conversation, but like, I cannot do like the 10 people in a circle conversations. Like, not good, man. Not good at all.
Do you remember like in high school dance parties, they would always, for some reason, I was never a really good dancer, but like I'd kind of just be a goof, but they throw me in the middle. And there was like 20 people, and this is the worst part for me. Like, I don't mind it in a networking event, but when it's like a dance off, and especially like in Lebanese weddings, they're infamous for this. Everybody comes around you, and then your mom pushes you in. Then you're like, oh god, here we go. The whole town's watching, man. You better start moving your hips, buddy.
Oh man. Do you have any daily practices or routines that if you don't do, that day or the following day is just off?
Yeah, definitely. So, gym for sure, unless it's a day off, but or some sort of fitness. I do a lot of boxing, weightlifting, running now because it's summer. I'd love to read, not necessarily always a book, could be an article. I always listen to podcasts every single day, different types. Sometimes it could be motivational speeches. I'm always interested in people and self-development. So I watch a lot of interviews of like Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs. And I love that. And coffee for sure. And probably meeting someone. I try to meet someone new every day, but definitely like I'll connect with at least 2-3 people a day. Easy. I love that. That's at the center of what I do. Yeah. How about yourself?
I'd say other than the questions that I ask myself every night, some sort of meditation practice.
Breathing. What do you do? Like what's?
So I've actually just recently, I changed up the practice to something that Tony Robbins does, like his whole priming exercise. But I used to just do like breathing exercises and whatnot. Cold showers are amazing because it's one thing I've learned is that I hate doing cold showers. So talk about getting rewiring your brain to have a bias for action and to do something you don't like to do. Well, I absolutely hate with a passion cold showers.
Nice.
And by doing that in the morning, I become more prone to just do things when I don't want to do it. And again, to talk about building confidence, that's one thing I do, right?
The oxygen, like as soon as you get it,
you do one of those.
Great.
Right?
It feels good,
So final question for me, what is one actionable piece of advice that you want people to really take home and that they can implement right now to really take action and build momentum and start adding value?
Yeah, look, I just think my biggest piece of advice, and if there's one thing I can leave you today with, is just start. Like, you need to execute. You can have 1,000 ideas, you can have 100 ideas, and that's all meaningless if you don't act on at least one. So figure out one thing you want to do and just try it out. Life is too short to wait for the perfect moment or to wait for the perfect lighting. Or like, you have superpowers that are within you that you just need to build the confidence to execute on. And so my biggest takeaway right now, figure it out, do something you love, and just start right now. As soon as you turn off this podcast, I need you to figure it out and just start today. Whether it's sketching it out, whether it's Googling it and figuring out the next steps, but just start, because action creates impact.
I love it.
Can you do one for me? One for me, do it.
Yeah. I would say...
Let's Grab Coffee Nation.
For me, I would say if there's one thing you can do, it's to write it down. Write it down and really put... it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be comprehensive. Write it down and then just start. And I think that's the recipe to just building momentum and getting it going.
Raphael Wong, Canvas Series. Let's Grab Coffee.
Let's Grab Coffee. Thank you so much, bro.
Here we go.